No trip to Dulverton on the Exe should be without you visiting Lance Nicholson, which is a most wonderful store in Dulverton. And I've walked in this morning and there's a pile of books here. There's Trout Bum. There is Mike Weaver's Pursuit of Wild Trout, which are the two books that completely changed my life. And then it's lovely to see Michelle Werrett's book Song of the Streams here. There are flies on the wall. It's just beautiful, and it's got that wonderful tackle shop smell to it as well, proper. James, it's just such a wonderful store. It's a must visit place, as I said, but how are you doing, first of all? Is everything good with you?
Yeah, very well, Pete, very well.
And the store here's been here a long time, and I know you, Pat, as well, ran it beforehand, and you've taken the reins now as well, and a keen angler and I guess hunter as well.
Yeah, do a bit of fishing, bit of shooting when I get a chance, when I'm not working. So yeah, anything outdoors, I'm happy.
Ideal. And like I say, it's got this fantastic mix of lovely stuff, and I love the flies on there, and it's all very carefully selected and looks absolutely stunning. Is it the dream job, though, working in a tackle shop?
It is good. I get to meet great people and help them out, get them out fishing. I miss out on quite a lot of fishing and outdoor tasks I might be doing myself, but yeah, it's great meeting the people.
And Dulverton Angling Club, an extraordinary success. I know I was over talking to the club in January, I think it was. It's an amazing success story. You must be incredibly proud.
It is. It's going really well. Patrick started the club 20-odd years ago. And from then, he thought we might get 25 members who to fish the local rivers. And we're up to, you usually get about 250 to 300 members now. So most beats have got somebody on most weeks. But it's usually somewhere to fish, so it's not oversubscribed yet. But it works well, gets people out on the rivers locally for not much money, really.
Tell listeners how much it is.
It's £35 for a year.
And if people are interested, because I guess it's one of those things, if you're coming down for a holiday for a week and want to squeeze some fishing in, it's an ideal way, isn't it, to get a week's worth of fishing if you want it, or even at that sort of price, just a couple of days. But if people want to join the club, how do they go about doing that? So
on the website, DulvertonAnglingAssociation.org, there's a membership form on there. They can fill that in, they can send it by email. Alternatively, they can just pop in the shop here and join on the day. We make it as easy as we can.
Fantastic. Well, we're off to go and fish the Haddeo now. How are the reports? Are you getting reports in from the season so far?
A few early reports, yeah. So grayling was quite good before the trout season. Trout starting off well. It's been a bit cold out there, but they're looking to feed already. So yeah, probably wet fly, I would think. But yeah, go and have a go.
We're going to do that. Standing in the first pool that I've got into, left Warren downstream, left him plenty of fishing. Water here is crystal clear. The Haddeo runs out of Wimberpool, I think it is. Lake, crystal clear. Tailwater, really, I guess, in some respects. I'm fishing one of Warren's fiberglass rods, 7'3" weight. He sort of shamed me into fishing just a dry, so I've just put a dry on. I've got one of Yestin's pheasant tail patterns. I'm going to try and stick to pheasant tail as much as I can this year, so I've got one of those on, and it's a bubbly, chuckly little stream, and I thought with the water being a little bit cooler early in the season, there are some midges around. There are some March browns I can see as well, I think, the odd March brown. That's encouraging as well. And I've been looking, instead of working the faster runs, I'm looking at those softer seams. And amazingly, a small little par came up and had a look at the fly, which I missed. But he came again, and I think it was just too big for him. So I've worked on the basis that the fly is probably a size, whatever it is, 12 or something. It's like an olivey pattern with the shuck on the back. I'm guessing they're probably not going to rise a great deal, so I'm going to try and bring them up. So that's my thought process behind it. I also should mention as well that James has a lovely selection of used books in there. I got suckered into a book by Lee Wolfe, and he's got some really early copies of Trout Bum as well, which are definitely worth checking out. So have a look there. I think he had 3 or 4 copies, and I think he had 1 or 2 copies of Mike Weaver's book too, Pursuit of Wild Trout, which are 2 incredibly important books to me. So yeah, if you're into your angling literature as well, they're worth a look. But the sun's come out, feels relatively warm. I'm just going to fish a bit and see how we get on. But I think the strategy will be to work that softer water and see if anyone's about. I'm going to work all of it, of course, but I think my gut is saying that's probably where the fish are actually going to be more than anything else. The river's small here. It's a small stream. Just putting the rod out, probably about 14 foot across, something like that. So the little 7-foot rod comes in perfectly well. Water is relatively low, so there's not many deep pools here. So I think covering water is the best strategy. Looking, as I often say, I'm knocking at the door. I've just seen some granum as well, flying upstream as they've hatched. So I'll be wary of all those sorts of things that are happening in front of me. And if I have to make some fly changes, I'll make them relatively quickly. Perhaps if I do see a deeper pocket, I may hang a nymph off the back. Sorry, Warren, if it looks right to do so. But we're going to see how we get on. Work my way up. As I said, the sun's out, the birds are singing. It just feels wonderful right now. It's these moments to be on the river are really special. It's just been a few seconds since I recorded the last piece, and I flipped again that little part just to see. He came again. I'm sure he's left the day a little bit wiser now. And then I flipped a little bit further up. There's a little bubble line, as I said, of that softer water, and a fish came up. Nate, the fly struck okay, bounced around on the surface and came off. So I'm encouraged by that. So yes, the fly works amazingly well. So I'm really pleased about that. I sort of knelt down to net it and got sort of that close, but it bounced around and just came off. So kind of a moral victory. So kind of like that. What it's also made me think is, right, okay, there's probably not going to be, I would think these fish are 6, 8, 10, possibly 12 inches at good size here. I'm sure there are bigger ones lurking in deeper pools, but already I'm starting to think, okay, this pattern works, but do I need a slightly smaller version of it? So that's my sort of thought process for that, whether I need to scale down my hook a little bit. It was only purely because that fish came off, but it bounced around on the surface a little bit and was gone. But yeah, I wonder if perhaps that might be the reason. So that's in my thought process right now. Got a confession to make. I got to a couple of pools and they were a little bit deeper, and it would have been, or to me at least, it wouldn't have made sense to cover them with a dry. There hadn't been fish rising. We brought some up, but they hadn't been rising. So I hung a nymph off the back and caught a few fish. Nicest one about 11 inches or so, possibly a little bit bigger, possibly a bit smaller, I don't care, but it was just beautiful. But just hung it off the back of an emerger pattern and caught some fish. Now I was just fishing a pool and Warren caught up with me, and I was sort of fishing the deeper water with the dry dropper, and then we saw a fish work just on the edge of the current dropping into the pool. It was pretty shallow water, but the take sounded as though it was a nicer fish than it possibly was. I wondered if the fish had moved for the fly or not. Warren covered it perfectly, but no dice. It was very skinny water, so I don't know if it was a very nervous fish that just bugged out of there the moment sometimes the fly can spook fish as well, and I wonder if it's just a classic example of that more than anything else. But conditions are good. Sun's covered over a little bit. It's quiet. It's still. Warren's stuck with the dry, like I say, as the gentleman that he is. But I'm just sort of looking for deeper pots and pools, perhaps to throw that rig that I'm fishing into them. But we'll see. Now we've sort of just been walking up the river together, and Warren's been working flatter, slower water with the dry. And then I've searched out some of those little pots and falls into deeper water. And it's hardly surprising. Early season this time of year, it's always going to be the nymph that's going to win those situations. But I think Warren has this amazing fortitude. I'm guessing he's probably going to stick with the dry because he really wants to. And I reckon the ratio probably on a day like today is 10-1. 10 on the nymph equals 1 on the dry. That would be my humble guess on this at the moment. But, I had a fleece on, taking that off now. I'm too warm. It's just gone midday. Seen some people walking the river with dogs, so we don't know. The dogs were wet, and that's one of the first things I always look at. We sort of exchange pleasantries, but I don't know what pools they've been in yet, so we've got to try and figure that out. And then we may have a mosey down to the main river and have a look down there this afternoon as well. But we'll keep going for the time being. And if you get those senses, don't you, sometimes, that when you think something's happened, if someone's fished through a pool or if dogs have been in or whatever it may be, that you just suddenly think, yeah, it's not really happening here. But we'll see what happens. He's said making casts in all the right spots and nobody's come up. It's a shallow bank, so, frankly, if I was a dog and one of the dogs was a dachshund as well. So that's a nice, easy entrance point for him if he wanted to go in. But we'll wait and see. As I said, we'll give it a little bit. You can, like I say, you can sometimes sense these things, so we'll see what happens. I've probably said this for all the years I've been doing this podcast, but early season, when I'm threading smaller flies, as I get older, it seems to be a massive result when I do it. And I'm pleased to report that I've only changed flies, I think, 3 or 4 times, and only needed my glasses once. So colossal result. Very, very happy about that. We jumped in the van. People were sort of walking up and down the river and the dogs were jumping in and all that sort of stuff. And, I call them civilians, people who don't fish. So they sort of stand opposite where you're going to be casting and ask how you're getting on. And that's fine. Really don't mind that. So I said to Warren, let's jump in the van and come downstream, come onto the main river, bigger river here. Probably, if you're fishing those Welsh rivers, it's kind of like that. I've always said that the Exe is very much like the Usk, certainly on these sections around this neck of the woods, downstream of Dulverton and stuff like that. It's very, very like that. I fished here once for grayling. We did a podcast here with a good friend at Shady, the Shady River superstar. Completely different river. It was a lot higher. You could barely wade out. It's relatively low. It's, again, the main river here is wonderfully clear, and it's kind of sharp contrast to the Tor. I don't know if that's because of farming practices and the red soil as well that is suspended in the water that makes it look just that little bit cloudier than here. But I'm looking across the pool, and the river here is a good 60 feet across, 70 feet across. I'm standing on River Right as you look downstream, and the main flow is against the far bank at the moment, and I can see pretty much all the way across. Warren's fishing the pool that the beat is named after, and he's been playing there. He's built up a graphite rod. He was saying to me that he hadn't used graphite for such a long time. It's either bamboo or glass. So he's fishing that. And we've sort of fished on our own here. I said, where do you want to fish? And we're both incredibly polite. And so he suggested where he wanted to go have a look. And I've just gone downstream of him. I nearly took a little bit of a dip that, if you'll know the beat that I'm talking about, there's a hut and then you walk down 2 pools, I think it is, and the river looks as though it's going to the far side, river left as you look downstream, but there's a close bit in by the bank that's a little bit deeper, and there were a few moments where my life flashed in front of me. The frightening thing was it wasn't even interesting, but managed to get out of there. I almost shipped water in the top of my waders, but thankfully didn't. So my dryness has stayed intact at the moment. I think the plan is probably to sit down. Warren's brought his pipe. I'm going to have a cigar, and we're going to sit down and have a chat. I can't see him now. He's just gone round the corner a little bit. As I said, it's a big, deep pool. The weekend, we have Fred talking about streamers, and part of me saying, yeah, it probably makes sense in there. But I'm kind of just enjoying fishing a dry dropper or duo. I've got a big caddis pattern that I bought in Italy for pocket water off of Stefano. But I've got about 4 foot down from there. I've got a nymph on there, and I'm just playing around with that, seeing how I get on. I thought I'd a bump off something, but I'm not 100% sure or not. But Warren's gone up relatively quickly. Just going to go and see how he's getting on and go from there. But yeah, he's sort of high sticking, I would guess, a duo. But looks to me like that rod's working great guns at the moment. So he's putting a big mend because he's almost going across into that slightly deeper water under the trees there. You can see he's dry on top of the water. And yeah, it looks like it probably is a duo he's fishing at the moment, but it's going out beautifully well. How's it going, bud? Any joys? He had a fish come up and have a look, so that's encouraging. I'd seen some granum come off as well, so I don't know if there's a little bit of that starting to happen now. And where he's fishing is flatter water, slightly slower as well, and I think that's probably the smarter bit. That's what I was looking for on the Haddeo when we were fishing there. So, but you fancy a break? Yeah, and that was definitely a yes, but I think he's in the right water. That looks absolutely right. We're going to sit down and have a chat. I'm sure we'll record with you, see if we can fill you in with a little bit more of what we've been up to today. So it's not a bad place to be standing right now, is it?
Ah, it's wonderful. I just said the same to you, didn't I, a couple of minutes ago. There's worse things you could be doing on a Tuesday afternoon, that's for sure. The rivers are probably a bit chilly, would you agree with that? Everything's a little bit early, but it's lovely. It's lovely to be out.
Yeah, it felt like it was happening on the upper river, and always early season, that's where I tend to, on the tour, head up the system a little bit more. It always strikes me, only where I fish, of course. I know each to their own sort of thing, but I always feel I've got a better chance there, particularly if we're looking for rising fish. And, you know, I was saying earlier about the 10-to-1 ratio of fish on a nymph to a dry today. That feels about the right ratio, and perhaps that is a function of conditions. We've had some unsettled weather as well. It's been pretty cold. The sun's trying to be out, and we were wearing fleeces earlier, take those off and then feel a bit cold at times, don't we? But this is a stark contrast, probably 3 or 4 times wider than where we were fishing earlier.
Yeah, I've not persisted with the dry. I'd say on this morning I rose 3, but none to the hand, unfortunately. But even my dry fly persistence I've had to give this time, because it just doesn't feel like there's anything, you're going to rise anything today. So, but we'll go with a dry dropper and see what happens.
And what have you been up to over winter?
Quite quiet on the building, really. I expected to see a few more come in around the Christmas period, but it's picked up now. There's a couple of 2 or 3 people with last minute pre-season orders that I'm on at the moment. But from a fishing point of view, I tend to have January and February off all the time, really. I just have a break and take some time off. So this is my first day back on the river for more than 2 months, actually.
And it looks though you settled into that really nicely. You're fishing glass further up the river, and I think I just recorded a bit where I was watching you cast a bit of graphite as well.
This is graphite. This is a 864 weight from Jason at Fortitude. Forgive me, Jason. I haven't got. I will post it later on, but I'm not sure exactly what model. But it's one of his own models, and it's a cracking little rod. Really impressed, must admit.
Nice. And what are you planning for this year?
Do you know what? I'm back down my way. It'll be the Avon and the Nadder again, and hopefully my home water, which is a small stream in Hampshire, and we'll just really try and target the better fish around May, and then see where the season takes me, really.
And we're doing our usual sort of sitting. I've got a cigar in my hand, and Warren's got his pipe, and we usually are having something to eat. But do you think we're getting a little bit health conscious in our old age? And, you know, we had a big old breakfast to start with, and then we've just given lunch a bit of a miss. Do you think we're getting sensible?
I think it's more to do with the large breakfast, if I'm being honest. I'm sure we'll get back to the lunch situation later on in the season when I come down to see you, or vice versa. But yeah, I think it's more the huge breakfast that's got something to do with that.
And what did you make of the fishing tackle going into Lance Nicholson?
What a wonderful, wonderful little shop. I said to James when I was in there, it reminds me very much of the Rod Box, which was local to me a fair few years ago before that unfortunately closed. But just a lovely little den, all sorts everywhere, and lovely old books actually. I know we both picked a book up and we ended up leaving with that. But yeah, just a lovely, lovely little shop.
And yeah, it looks as though weather's a little bit more settled now. There's a bit more open blue sky at the moment. It's just really pretty. Like you say, I think the water temperature may have a little bit to do with it. I'm sure. I got really tempted and I said, I'm going to bring a streamer rod. And I thought, oh, look, we got a March Brown there. March Brown just flew in front of us. So there we go. Perhaps that's some form of a sign to say, yeah, you're doing the right thing. Because we could have Nymph, we could have streamer, and I almost pulled out a rod for streamers as well, and I thought, sod it, it's about more than that for us, and just being in a beautiful little spot like this. And I find often as well, early season, that towards the end of the day, that if the sun getting on the water, permeating through the water, may just take that water temperature up just a minuscule amount, and enough to, it looks like there are the odd March Brown coming off, aren't they? You can see across the river there. So we'll be looking for signs of that perhaps, and fishing with a tiny little bit more intent at the moment. But have you fished the Exe before, by the way?
First time on the Exe. No, this is lovely. So I've been, for my sins, I've been a member here for, this is my third season, and this is the first time I've set foot on the water. So no, it's just lovely to be down here. I've always wanted to fish the Exe, and here I am. But let's see if we can do it justice for an hour or so this afternoon.
And you know the Tor very well and that sort of stuff. And it is, does this feel more of a Welsh river to you than a West Country river?
Yes, and I'll be honest with you, Pete, I didn't expect it to be as big as this down here. I expected to be fishing a smaller river than this, but it's a fairly sizable, I don't know how you'd say how far across that is, but it's certainly a fairly sizable piece of water in comparison to what we were on this morning. Well, in comparison to, I think it's got husk-like, I would say, when I'm looking at it now from where I am. So yeah, definitely. But it's lovely. It's a nice change from this morning as well. We've really gone from one type of water to another, complete contrast. I think we probably had more chance on the smaller water, if I'm being honest, but we'll give it a go.
We were really polite, weren't we? And I recorded the thing earlier, and it really doesn't matter. You know, people are having a nice time. There's no point getting upset about it or harumphing and stuff like that. We just said, look, and we had the option to come down here. So I really wanted Warren to see it. And I think, as he's saying, you know, on the tour, it's more deeper. So this has got that real more freestone, rockier feel to it, and I recorded that section where I nearly came a cropper down there, but it's not big bouldery. It does have that husk type feel to it, and perhaps even some of those northern rivers as well that I fished over the years. But yeah, it feels more that, and it was interesting. Now you're get what James was saying about a wet fly, and you got here, didn't you? And you said, actually, I might think about chucking. I forgot my spiders. Yeah.
No, definitely. I've left spiders in the van, and I think that would have been a nice way to fish this afternoon. And the van's not that far away. I'm even because to swing those, I think that might be a nice way to while away a couple of hours, and probably a good chance of picking something up. So yeah, it is ye old traditional wet fly water, really, isn't it? Definitely.
Absolutely. No, it's really pretty. As I said, it's crystal clear. It's looking really, really nice. We'll keep trying. As I said, I've set I think I've probably got a 3.5 mil, something like that. About 3-4 foot down, something like that. I thought I might get in the game around there. I'm sort of flirting with the idea of changing the nymph. I don't know how much difference that'll make, but I'll give that a little bit of a go and we'll see. And I think where I was talking about Warren casting, I think that might be a better bet, because I think the sun is sort of on that pool but behind the pool. So I think the trout will like that as well. So I think there's something to be said for that. So it may be that when we finish having our smoke that we head up and fish there. It's a little bit shallower as well. These pools are more salmony pools, and I was sort of working the very edge, the softer creases, looking to see if anyone was there, and I saw Warren get into the pool above me, and because it's so clear, it was quite deep, wasn't it?
Yeah, that one I jumped in is a hell of a pool, isn't it? I wouldn't like to guess how deep it was, but I'll certainly be over the top of my waders, possibly even more than that. So yeah, they're huge, deep pools. The two that the first two pools that we've come to. So I think the shallower, streamier water is going to be where we're going to find something today.
Yeah, it's definitely March Browns coming off. I've seen a few more as well, so we might have a wander round. There's Granum as well. I can see the Granum flying upstream as they've hatched as well. So you never know. As I said, I wonder if we head to where that sun's warming things just a tiny bit. And I remember early seasons on the tour where I'd see fish in incredibly shallow water, almost sort of not sunning themselves, but perhaps taking advantage of slightly warmer water temperature as well. So yeah, we'll give that a go, and I'll keep you in touch with what happens at the moment. But yeah, it's just good to be out. I've missed, we usually fish a bit over the winter, but weather conditions, the wet winter that we've had, has been against us in that sense. So yeah, it just feels as though everyone's yawning and waking up a little bit. There was a dipper just went down the river as well. So all those little signs are lovely. So yeah, let's see if we can find one eating a March Brown perhaps. Just as I turn this off, where we were standing, we've been talking about the March Browns. We saw a fish rise. So Warren's hopped down into the pool to have a look. And there is a little bit of sun on that, just that little section where the fish rose. So he's gone down to try and cover that. And I'm going to walk up, I think, to where I was talking about and see if I can find a rise. I might just wander up the river looking for a rising fish. Just kind of thinking about changing things up a little bit. And perhaps put almost an unweighted fly on the point and then go back to the pheasant tail there. And I think that's the plan. Anyway, I made a cast and a fish came up for the great big caddis I had on. So I'm going to refine things down just a little bit and try that technique. Up ahead of me, this is like an even flow. I'm sort of about shin deep in the water. The far side, I would think, is probably only thigh to waist deep at the very deepest here. So I think I've got a chance. So I'm going to try an unweighted wet fly sort of thing. It's again a pheasant tail that Yestin tied for me, and then try perhaps something a little bit March Brownie and see. But I'm really encouraged, and it's, I'm standing exactly where we talked about. So just sometimes I get things right, very occasionally. But yeah, I can feel the warmth of the sun on my neck, and I think that might just be provoking a little bit more. And I can see the odd fly. I wouldn't call this a big hatch or anything. There's a few Granum as well. So there's a few things knocking around that perhaps we might get a look at. So just watching something caught in the current right against the bank there at the moment is struggling, but that hasn't been intercepted. And I am starting to wonder, specking the water and just making some cast and back in where I think might be the right spot is where I'm going to work my flies. I heard the line lift downstream of me and then a curse, which was kind of interesting. And Warren had a theory, tight under the trees. And interesting, right, mate?
Yeah, I've managed one on the dry, albeit a out-of-season grayling, but nice to get one on the dry. Yeah, I didn't persist in that spot now because I'm feeling that they are all grayling, but it's still lovely to get one on the dry.
I sort of went upstream a little bit further, and there's sort of a run into the pool that we'd been fishing. So I decided, it looks quite nymphy, and it was actually really shallow water. It's only the second time I've ever been here, so I don't know this section so well. But so I decided to take the nymph off. It suddenly dawned on me, so I walked through quickly, and then a couple of small fish rose in the sun, in the shallow water. I flipped one or two. They didn't stick, and then I managed a small one, 5 inches, something like that, 4 or 5 inches. So a slight moral victory. So we're getting there. The thing I've noticed is that the last bit, I was just winding in to see Warren. He was standing by me, and one of the things I noticed was how cold my feet were. It's funny, I'm like wearing just 2 T-shirts at the moment, and I'm not too bad. There's a little bit of a breeze. Mike might be picking that up as well, but there's a little bit of a breeze. But that sounded like something. But But yeah, it's not too cold, but the water temperature is pretty damn cold. So I'm sure that's got something to do with it. I've sort of worked the water, and I stuck with the unweighted fly for a bit, and then just went for a dry outright just to see what would happen more than anything else. And what I was concentrating on doing was not throwing too long, making sure that I had plenty of slack in there to get a drift, and then go there, because when I'm specking the water, I want to cast and then step up and then cast again. So I'm casting into new water the whole time, but I've got the line under control, and it's a nice way to stay in contact with it. Of course, it would be a different game if we'd seen fish consistently rising, we'd target them, get into position, but it's more speculating than anything else. And that probably, coupled with the fact of the temperature of the water as well, is probably why there's little splutterings, I would think, of a rise. That's probably the best description. In the West Country, I've always said it's kind of weird that you'd think after winter that the bigger fish would come on the feed. And again, I'm only speaking from my experience down here, but it's not. It's usually the smaller ones that start feeding more aggressively, certainly at the surface first, and then the bigger ones come into play a little bit later. But they're just observations that I've seen. But I'm always thinking when I'm throwing a dry about slack and making sure I can get as best drag-free drift as absolutely possible. And by having, it's not a really, really short line that I'm fishing. I'm not fishing it under the rod tip. I'm probably fishing with 20 feet of fly line out, something like that. So I've got it nice and controlled. Plus I've got about 15 foot of leader, something like that. And that's given me enough just to speculate and cover the water, and then what I can also do there is move position should I need to. But the first thing I think is, as the fly goes out, right, let's get some slack in there. Might be a reach cast as the line's going out, and then adding some supplementary slack as I go from there. So that's what we're doing. We're sort of standing, we walk back downstream, and it's the area we touched on that has the sun on it, and I think a degree or two of sun on it may just make a little bit of difference. And I can see a lone granum in front of me. It's not like a big blanket hatch or anything by that means. They're just sort of little smatterings of fly coming off. And it's been, certainly down here, challenging but really, really interesting. And, there may have been other ways that we possibly could have fished this, but I'm kind of enjoying this, although there's a little noise in the back of my head or in my ear going, try a streamer, Pete. Try a streamer. So I might go down to that big deep pool that Warren was mentioning, perhaps rip something through there and go, see how we get on. I listened to the little voices in my head, pulled a streamer through a couple of the pools. It's one of Fred's really heavy ones, so it's got like a tungsten head on it and a couple of beads further down. My poor little 4-weight struggled and strained, but did the job beautifully. So that was cool. No joys though. Water cold, it's been one of those early season days that we get down here in the West Country, and unlike some of the streams that I enjoy hearing about throughout the rest of the country, our part of the world's a little slower to warm up, but I'm hoping things will change very, very soon. Having a fish on a dry fly was pretty cool though, so I've really enjoyed that. And a little postscript to this as well. I headed out to the tour on Easter Monday, pulled a streamer there. It was too cold and it was still a little bit too high to fish conventionally for trout and too low for salmon. Sound a bit like Goldilocks, don't I? But had a couple of fish. The really interesting thing is I got an almighty whack off something very sizable, I have to say, that hit very, very hard, where I'd expect a nice trout to sit as well. But that one didn't stick. But I had two smaller ones and aggressive takes from fish, about a pound or so each of them. So they were really, really good fun as well. So it's sort of filling a little bit of time until I start to see those fish rise a little bit more. There's been sort of odd granum about as well, but that's, as I often say on here, is the thing that I'm really looking for early season, to see the first signs of fish rising. But I think we had the major chunk of it a little while back. When I said I was salmon fishing with Emma on that podcast, that there was a hell of a lot hatching then in earlier March. So I don't know if that's that hatch over and done with by now or for now, but we'll watch that one with great interest. I saw the odd one or two on the bank holiday Monday, but that was the extent of it. Water temperature's still pretty cold, although the dog did get into the river a couple of times, and I take that as a positive. If he's getting in, then it can't be super cold. So I look forward to seeing what's to come at the moment. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm taking everything in my stride at the moment. I'm not rushing into everything, feeling I've got to go fishing. Just sort of easing myself nicely into it, and I'm really enjoying it all the more because of that. But the sun's out. Wind could drop a little bit. That would be really nice if that drops a little bit, but I'll take some sunshine, that's for sure. Well, this is the end of another podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this one as much as me. I've tried to take you fishing with me. We'll be more interview based on the next one, I think. I've got some things lined up and a continuation with Will Shaw and Mark Surtees as well. So I'm going to be doing one of those before too long, and some others booked in as well. So I hope you're continuing to enjoy this podcast. If you do, subscribe to it so that you get it it comes late, I think, Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So you got the chance to listen to that. So yeah, subscribe if you enjoy it. Thanks so much for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Fly Culture podcast, brought to you in association with the Voice of Game Angling, Trout and Salmon, where Pete is the editor.